Howdy, howdy. What's happening, all you bad mofos out there in the Black Army radio realm? Welcome back, or if you're new here, welcome to the movement. Before we get into it, real quick, if the show's ever made you think or feel some kind of way, give us a 5-star rating, give us a follow. We'd appreciate it. Whatever episode you think is worth a damn that we interviewed or investigated, send one of those episodes to a friend. We'd appreciate that as well. And before we get into it, really start getting into it, we lost 4 service members, and I want to go ahead and give them a shout out really quick. And so we have First Lieutenant Tyler James Freehan. We have Private Isabella Gonzalez. She was 19 years old, literally just graduated high school. We have Sergeant Michael Emmanuel Swinton and Sergeant Angel S. Rampersad. And I hope I got those names right. But that brings our number up to, 18, 19 right now in this war that they don't call a war. It's conflict. It is fucking kicking right back up like a wildfire, baby. Oil is back to over $100 a barrel, just like the good old days. How you doing, Joel? How we doing today, buddy?
Doing good. Dragging ass this morning, but doing good. Annoyed by the same shit that's been annoying me for it's the same dog and pony show. It's a replay
for the last
of
20
Iraq.
years.
It's like, and we watch. Yeah, there's so much shit going on. Then on top of this war, like I don't know. Yeah, I'm tired. I've been driving a lot lately. I'm getting ready to move back up to Yampa, so driving back and forth. I did a trip out to Illinois and just getting gash whiplash. Fucking yeah, a bad time of the. I haven't drove this much in probably only time I drive a lot is during hunting season. How people don't see it, and it's just a game. It's putting money in the same people's hands. It's our ties to the Middle East and the money that's been there forever, like it's just, yeah. And then just like the stuff with how tribal, you see it in our shorts. Like we'll post something up about Christianity or something like that, and just how tribal everybody is within it. Because then there's people who are like, yeah, brother, you're one of us. And then there's people who are like, oh, you're fucking wrong. And it's like, I think neither of us are saying, we're just pointing out the ironies of American Christianity. But like, to me, like all the shit's over fucking religion. Like this stuff is the core of this is like division based on religion. And in America, some nationalism, I think, tied into that, and to me, it's like, fuck all you guys. Like, I'm so tired of fighting these fucking holy wars and having Muslims come on and call Jewish horrible people, and then having Jews come on and calling Muslims horrible people. It's like, we're all fucking people here, man. Like, what's
interesting about how this war just
fucking bad? Like, Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah. What's interesting about like how we're at with the war now, how everything just kicked back off. But fucking in Iran right now, I think this is pretty damn interesting. So Israel hasn't been hitting Iran. We've been hitting Iran, just us. And right now Israel's coming out, Ben Gvir and all these assholes, all those sadistic demons have come out and basically been like, we're really supportive of what America's doing right now. Really supportive. If they can do it for us, we'll just have them do it for us. They're putting this shit in Israeli news, dude. They're putting it in Israeli news that they're super down. And this was right after we lost these service members, dude. It wasn't before we lost the service members, it was after we lost them. And they came out in their media basically saying that, hey, we got the US of A, good old US of A out there spending their own goddamn money, our fucking tax money. Everybody out there that's paying, $4 plus a gallon. Everybody out there that can't buy a goddamn home unless you're a boomer or unless you really, really, were able to be successful in your life, because it seems like a lot of this younger generation statistically isn't able to get into any housing. Interest rates are too fucking high. We all got played, man. We got played. Our whole society got played. And here's another thing. The goddamn Republicans own everything. The House, the Senate, the presidency, the fucking Supreme Court. And you have these people out here on the right talking about how they can't get this done and that done, and they need this power and that power. And we got to get past our midterms, right? We need to get the only way we're going to get our agenda done, Joel, as if we win in the midterms. And it's like, you guys have had 2 years to do what you promised you were going to do.
You
2
guys
years.
are,
That's why you were given
yeah.
that little mandate you're talking about, And it's like, dude, you own everything,
Well, and
everything,
there's
every single branch of government.
and there's just a bunch of bullshit that's happening too. So they've been trying to pass the no trading in Congress, and it's gotten bipartisan support throughout, and then it always gets killed right before it gets to the Senate. And like what's going on now, they have that bill's up on board for no trading in Congress, but what the Republicans did is tied in a voter ID act to it, so they know they know the Democrats won't vote because won't. And we need to stop pushing. We need to push single bills. We need to quit trying to push bills with things put into it intentionally so it won't pass.
Poison pills.
So meanwhile, if the Republicans
put a poison pill in it.
if the Republicans didn't and then it's not going to pass, and it has enough bipartisan support to where it probably could pass and get pushed into the Senate and then be voted on. But they put a poison pill in it, and the Democrats are very guilty of doing this too when they're in charge, and it's bullshit. We should have single issue bills. You shouldn't be able to put more than one thing on a bill. It's fucking crazy, dude. Our whole
and you know what else just passed the House,
broken, dude? And we just get fucked.
Oh yeah, and you know what else just passed the House?
They just
passed the Israeli integration. Yeah, and Israeli intelligence, military intelligence merger integration thing passed the House. There was like 4 Republicans that voted against it, dude. These Republicans are such failures to me, man. Like they're such fucking. As a lifelong guy who was on that side of the aisle and like stacked bodies for those beliefs, man, that I thought were so entrenched and so like meaningful in our society. And it's like, so that's passed. So it's going to go to the Senate now, and I don't think that if it gets through that, Trump's definitely going to sign it. But it's like all that stuff, dude. It's like these people are so full of shit. They're all so full. We got played so bad, man, by all of these fucking cunts out there that are running this shit. I mean, they're liars, cheats, like, and they're all the fucking same. It doesn't matter if you're talking about a Republican or a Democrat or whatever. I heard Sean Ryan's coming out on a Tucker Carlson interview, I guess today, Friday. We're Friday. It's goddamn 6:00 in the morning, Joel.
Yeah.
I'm freaking waking up right now. Let's go. But it's like I saw a thing last night. I was sitting in bed scrolling, and Sean Ryan's coming out on Tucker Carlson today, and he was just like, dude, he's so disenfranchised, and I don't blame. Like everybody is, man. Like all the people that don't have their heads up their asses, you know what I mean? So far, like that lump in your throat is your nose. It's like it's ridiculous how many people still have their heads up their ass with this shit, and are still. There's this motherfucker. He was. It was one of those shorts you were talking about. And he was talking about how we've been at war with Iran for like 45 years and all this other shit. And so I'm like, hey, man, why don't you take a look back at what happened in 1953? Once you investigate what happened in 1953 when Iran nationalized their oil so they could own their own natural resources, and the CIA and the Brits instituted a coup to overthrow their democratically elected leader, Mossadegh, right? So this guy comes back with me with some absolute fucking bullshit saying that the only reason Iran did that was because Russia told them to. So Russia could steal their oil and not the United States and Great Britain. And I was like, dude, there is literally no history for that at all. I mean, they will talk themselves into pretzels, dude, to somehow justify this shit and to keep justifying it. And now this Pickaxe Mountain thing with the goddamn nuclear dust. And everybody out there, listen, we're only going to do this for a minute. Okay. We're going to get into some other. Joe's actually going to talk about some AI centers. All right. Which is that's starting to get hot and heavy. Hey man, how about these cops? Actually, I'll go back to Pickaxe and really quick too. We are going to do the second part of our series. Listen. All right. That is going to talk about flood cultures, the flood, the memory, and how many different cultures have that memory and how it's not, I guess what you call a parallel invention. A parallel invention is when all these cultures would just simultaneously come up with some history without ever meeting each other at basically the exact same time. We are going to get into that. We are talking politics first a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's like, dude, this Pickaxe Mountain thing now, it's like, so supposedly when we had the goddamn ceasefire, we had technology, satellite imagery on where we hit Operation Midnight Hammer. And right, like, oh, they're not getting their nuclear dust. We'll see everything, blah, blah, blah. Now the Israelis, listen, we did this war because of Israeli intelligence, not American intelligence. Israeli intelligence. Our own intelligence services said that everything that we're fighting for right now is bullshit. All of our intelligence services, every single one, came out and said that the intelligence that we were fighting on when it came to the nuclear weapon development and everything was bullshit. And so we went to Israeli intelligence. That's the quickest way you can know right there that we're bought and paid for by the Israeli state, is the fact that we discounted every single one of our intelligence agencies and went exclusively with Israeli intelligence. And now these same assholes are telling Trump, and he hasn't listened to anybody but these guys, that the nuclear stuff has been moved to a different underground facility in Pickaxe Mountain, which is pretty much the same location as basically where Operation Midnight Hammer was, but they didn't hit Pickaxe Mountain. And now we got to hit Pickaxe Mountain. These people are such fucking liars. They're so full of shit all the time, man. It's like, obviously, okay, so did you or did you not have satellite imagery on where the nuclear sites were? You know what I mean? It's like, it's continuous bullshit. It's like, did you or did our intel agencies, did they or did they not have intelligence that directly contradicted Israeli intelligence? Did they or did they not? Yes. Okay. Did we or did we not have satellite imagery up on the nuclear facility sites? Well, if we're going to believe Israeli intelligence, apparently we can't believe our own satellite imagery. I mean, and now we got gas at $100 a barrel. Nobody can buy a house. Interest rates are through the roof. Dude, the cost of living in the economy is dog shit. We're losing people in war now. We're passing shit that is extending the Patriot Act. We're integrating the Israeli military with our military and intelligence infrastructure. They're not doing anything about insider trading. They're not doing anything about the arrests for all the corruption and inside trade and all the bullshit, anything with Epstein. Every single thing we were promised was a fucking lie. Every single goddamn thing. And if you're out there and you still support this guy, you're a borderline fucking traitor yourself, as far as that.
And it's not even, I mean, support this guy, support whoever the you want, but like, this is all a game. And like, going back into the Ukraine where it started, years ago, and like, this is like, and this, like, so all the money in the Ukraine war leads back to like BlackRock, and it's defense contractors and farmland in like Europe. And the US committed $113 billion to Ukraine following the 2022 invasion. That amount could have been built homes for every homeless person in America. Another $24 billion committed since, with $60 billion more requested. Senator Mitch McConnell was asked if the U.S. could afford $113 billion to Ukraine, and his response, "Don't worry, I don't really think it's going to Ukraine. It's going to American defense contractors." That's just laundering money between war. Senator Tim Scott called the aid a loan. The loan is conditional, required to, this is what Ukraine has to do with this money: sell all government-owned assets to multinational corporations. It's just fucking the rich getting richer and these corporations getting more money. Like, we give money to them, they give it back to American defense contractors, and it's just this big circle of, it's a way to laundry money legally based on war. And it's crazy.
And now you got
like we
now you got Pete Hegseth out there
this shit, man,
testifying in front of Congress. Yeah, and you got Pete Hegseth out there now testifying in front of Congress saying like, hey, we got to increase our budget. We got to get all of our money and, plus back up on everything. And then you get these congressmen, senators that, I mean, bless them for doing this, especially the people on the left. There were a couple of them that were pretty good that were basically like, hey, man. And they basically just said, on day 12, you said this. On day 23, you said this. On day 27, you guys said this. On day 30, you said, we're basically just saying that we had completely destroyed their military. We'd obliterated everything. They had no capabilities left. We were just doing some house cleaning. And now you're asking for 1.5. Hey, Americans out there. Hey, you guys out there. You guys need some money? Anybody out there needs some money? You need a loan? You're struggling a little bit? Need to pay your fucking electric bill, your mortgage, You know what I mean? Need to put a tank of gas in your truck, get your kids to their baseball games, do all those extracurricular activities, maybe enjoy a vacation, like a vacation during the summer when your kids are out of school. You think you can use a loan? Because guess who's paying for that budget that they're probably surely going to pass? And on top of all the money we've already spent in this war that is complete dog shit. So you guys need some help out there?
Well,
Because the American government's going to get theirs. They're going to get theirs. You know what I'm saying? We were played so hard by these pieces of shit. So hard.
well, and just, I mean, and all this stuff is it's all together, like Palantir, ICE, data centers, AI, the surveillance state, like all this shit is tied up. Like if
All the
you're in a
flock
city that
cameras,
has
all this
flock
flock camera
cameras,
stuff,
that,
dude.
yeah, that it,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm, yeah,
Dude, I'm seeing them here.
that's Palantir's
I looked up
running.
how many of them there
Yeah,
are.
they're,
Yep. Dude,
and that's where,
they're right down from Pittsburgh, dude. There's one that's right over the freaking dude, they're everywhere over here. Like, I got one that I see every single day when I'm going to and from Steamboat, and it drives me crazy. They're posting on the local pages now, and I'm you know what? I'm glad to see it, dude. And I'm not promoting anything, and I'm not doing anything, but it was like they're gonna do something about those flock cameras, man. Bless the people that fucking do it, that are willing to take that chance and do that, because we are entering into 1984, dude. George Orwell's 1980. We're literally being told, just like in the book, to change our minds on who's our enemy, why we're fighting, without any good information. Just like it is in there, the surveillance, the lies, dude. It's eerily similar to that book, what's happening right now. And then you have the people out there that are willing to justify it at all.
well,
like I said, that will tie themselves into knots, pretzels, to make sure that they can somehow justify more surveillance, worse economy, more war in the Middle East, higher gas prices, higher building prices, everything going through the roof. Nobody doing like our country's goddamn falling apart, man, almost at the seams. And it's like, we can't wait to burn our money and send it everywhere else, to every other society, and fight every single goddamn war we can fight, rather than just reinvesting in our own people. We do not reinvest in our infrastructure. We do not reinvest in our youth. We definitely, Joel, we do not invest in our youth in this society at all. We invest solely in the boomer class. We make sure the boomer class doesn't pay taxes. Now they're not going to pay property taxes. Like, hey, why the fuck should I pay property taxes, man? It's like things where when you bought a house in the 80s and 90s, I'm sorry, if you're out there and you did that, you're paid off, like, congratulations, because the people today can't fucking do it. They're not going to be able to do it at all. And so it's like they're getting all the breaks, every single economic break that there is, and we're not getting shit. And our kids' generation is definitely not getting shit at all.
Well, here's a big thing too, is so like they had some crazy high interest rates in the 80s. We're talking like 15, 19% interest rates. And I was talking to some boomers about this, of like, because they're like, well, we had rough times. We had some gas crises and we had big interest rates and stuff. And I was like, yeah, but they weren't long lasted. It was like
and the cost of living was
like
totally
an
different.
8-year hiatus.
The cost of living, like the discrepancy
and everything
in the cost of living was totally different. Totally different.
Since GWAT, America has been at this steady decline of debt, and we've never really dug out of that initial recession in 2008. We had a little bump, but comparative to like how they dug out a recession so much quicker, or like bad spots in the 80s and 90s, you know? And yeah, it's just kind of funny listening to some of those boomers, because they're like, oh, we had hard times. And I was like, yeah, but it's been sustained. And the difference also is what you just talked about, is like that wage gap the cost of living wasn't so much, and that wage gap was steadier. And then since GWAT, that wage gap has driven up, you know, and then the cost of living has also gone up, and the pay hasn't gone up. One thing that was happening, what they don't talk about,
hasn't gone up at all. Yeah, to match it.
Yeah, pay was increasing the same as everything else was until GWAT, essentially. And when that happened, and that's when we
Dude,
started piling our debt. Yeah, it's never ending.
sixty
And
thousand
but
dollars a year.
people need to
Sixty
fucking
thousand dollars a year. $60,000 a year in a job used to be like the gold standard, dude. That was like the gold standard. You know what I'm saying? 80s, 90s. If you can make around $60,000 a year with some bennies, your wife wasn't going to have to work, or you were going to be good to go, man. You'd be able to buy a house, you'd have a retirement, man. You'd be able to
yeah,
make your grocery payments, you'd be able to pay your bills. $60,000 a year. That was basically the gold standard. I did some research on this economically. Now it's doubled that in most places. If you're not making $120,000 a year, bro, right around six digits, you're you're not going to be able to get any investment. You're not going to be able to buy a house. You're not going to be able to make your bills, dude. You're not definitely not saving for like retirement for our generation is just completely out the fucking window. You think Social Security is going to be around when we're like in our 60s, 70s
yeah, that's
to collect Social Security that's already bankrupt because they've robbed Social Security and completely raped it like it's their piggy bank? We invest money into it for retirement. It's our fucking money. It's not their goddamn money. It's our fucking
yeah,
money. That was the entire plan on why Social Security was put in place, right? All that shit's going to be gone. And they tell us, like, what, you're doing me a favor, giving me back my own money? You're doing me a favor? And then on top of it,
right.
depending on what my retirement is gonna detail how much of my Social Security I get back. Hey, fuck you. There should be an option where I get the whole goddamn thing back at once with one click and be like, I paid my whole life into this
Yeah,
shit. I can either take payments or I'll take the whole
and
motherfucker
you're
right now. You know what I mean? It's like this stuff pisses me
yeah.
off, dude. Like that stuff's gone for us, dude. It's gone for our generation for sure. And it's like if you're not both working, busting your ass, letting the state basically raise your kids now, right? Because now you got to let public school raise your kids and babysitters because husband and wife aren't, nobody's staying home, dude. You have got to have some kind of income.
Well,
You got to
and
do it.
the thing what sucks with public school is that they've created a culture war between people. So like there's high turnover in schools because you, depending on where you lie on social things, you're walking on eggshells on either side. You go to a conservative place as a new teacher and you say, I believe in evolution and some of the things in the Bible might not be true. And then you're ostracized. You go to a hippie place as a conservative teacher and you teach something about, I don't, you know, like it's just, and then so you don't have, like I was
Same
talking
thing.
about
Yep.
Sirocco
It's
and I was
one way
talking
lizard
about
shit.
when I was a kid at Sirocco, like the same teacher who taught my brother 7 years before me taught me. And like you saw
Yeah.
the same teacher in that school for 15, 20 years, you know? And now like a teacher's average turnover is 2 years. Like they go to a job, they get pushed out and
They can't afford it here,
then people
dude.
get
That's
mad
I mean, for
because
like the teachers and stuff, they hire freaking teachers with no teaching certificate because they have no option but to hire a gal that's like, or even a dude that's like 21, right? Halfway through their BA, Bachelor of Arts of like teaching, don't have their teacher certificate yet. And they're running classrooms, fifth grade, sixth grade, fourth grade, running the whole classroom without another teacher there because they can't find anybody to come teach. Why? Because they don't make enough money to live. They don't make enough money to live. They teach full time and they get paid like $50,000 a year, $45,000 a year or something. And when you have little places like this, these country towns, dude, that are really expensive places, like on the western slope of Colorado, they'll teach at a place like Oak Creek long enough just to get it put on their resume so they can transfer to a bigger school in a bigger place where they're going to make more money. You know what I'm saying? Because they know that's the only way they're
well,
going to survive in that occupation. And they don't stick around. We have
and even
huge, dude, every single year in my kid's school, we go through 75% probably. I mean, principals, teachers, dude, janitors, like doesn't matter, coaches for sports. There's like a 75% turnover, it feels like every single year. Every single year. Because they can't afford to stay. It's terrible.
well, and not only that, you have like the private Montessori things. I have nothing against someone wanting to get a good education for their kids, but like those systems just rob the public school system of any good teacher, because why is a teacher going to go to public school and get paid $30,000 to $40,000 a year, sometimes less depending on what you're teaching, when you could go to a Montessori or private school and make $60,000 to $80,000 a year? So like it
Yeah,
just
man.
drains from
It's
that
smart
public
economic
school
decision.
system. And then
Hmm.
and it's and that's the thing. I mean, that's the crux of capitalism, is like the bottom's always going to get the. So then you have two parents who are working full time. They could hardly afford their house, so they're definitely not going to put their kid into a private school. And then they have a system where you have disenfranchised teachers showing up to school because they're not getting paid at all, and then they have to. It's just, it makes the lowers even low. It's just, and I don't know the way
Dude,
out
the
of it, with
separation,
besides paying
the
teachers
separate,
and giving incentives to.
yeah, the separation's getting dangerous. It's starting to get dangerous, I think. Like the more and more this wealth gap grows, the less and less opportunity there is for the younger generations that aren't boomers. Like the harder it is to have kids, raise kids, like have a retirement, have any kind of property you can call your own at all. Like it becomes dangerous to the state, because that's when you start having rebellion. That's when you start having the chucklings and the beginnings, the foundational elements of rebellion, man. And like we're seeing it with the flock cameras now, right? You got a massive movement
Yeah.
in the United States right now. And it's kind of like, think about it. A flock camera isn't a human being, right? But you can take out your frustrations on it a little bit to be like, you know what? I'm just really sick of this state.
Fuck yeah,
I'm
you
sick of
can.
it. I'm sick of the fact that I can't afford anything. I'm sick of the fact that I can't start a family, you know? And that, like, that representation of the state isn't a human. It's not like you don't go out there and you're not killing somebody. You know what I'm saying? You're not attacking the state. You're not overthrowing the Capitol. You know what I mean? But it is a very, very small sign of resistance. It's a sign of resistance, is what it is. And this is how resistance starts, are things like this. And I'm saying this because this is important. You can look at it through history, and it's like you kind of break the seal a little bit. Think about it. You get a group of dudes, males, that are going around covering themselves up, wearing gloves, face masks, everything else, with sawzalls or a shotgun, and they're going out there taking out these flock cameras. you know it's like that's the first step. It's not necessarily violent, but it is illegal, and you are putting yourself out there, willing to be charged, possibly even federally. You know what I mean? Because this is a nationwide policy. It's not states, it's federal. And so I don't know whether or not it would be a local charge, or even whether it be a federal charge. I'm not sure. But it's like you have that is the beginning act of rebellion and disruption right there. There's stages to this. Okay. People don't just go, it's like the military. You don't just go from the fucking street, right, to a tier 1 or a tier 2 unit. You got to go through the process, man. And it's like when you have rebellion start, when you have people that are worried about being incarcerated, worried about being killed, worried about raising their families, you start making those little choices to push yourself away from society a little bit. All of a sudden you go from flock cameras to going to something else. You know what I'm saying? And that escalation becomes really, really dangerous to a society. And it's like our leadership don't see it, dude. They don't see the forest through the trees at all. They cannot read the people. They're doing a terrible job at reading society, because right now, like, really, the middle is getting huge. The middle is getting huge because people on the left and people on the right are starting to come together and basically be like, what's more important than abortion, right? What's more important than trans issues, right? What's more important than these little things that we've been fighting about? Oh, data centers. People are getting arrested, dude. It drives me crazy seeing these authoritarian, jackbooted thug cops showing up to these town hall meetings, right? Where people are expressing, literally, not being violent in any way, shape, or form, not calling for violence, not even calling for violence, just expressing their dislike and displeasure for these data centers. And these cops, these sheriffs, these local PD guys that are part of your community, okay, are going in there and hooking them and charging them with crimes and changing their fucking lives and their ability to raise their children because they spoke out. There's a book out there, and I highly recommend everybody read it. It's called Ordinary Men. Ordinary Men. And it's about World War II. And it's about all the police forces in Germany that were just ordinary dudes, ordinary men, raising families, going to work every day. And then as time went on and the Nazi Empire basically took hold and took over in Germany, and they started doing everything with the gays and the gypsies and the Jewish people and everything else that was happening, right? These ordinary men went from doing little things like arresting people for speaking out about a data center in your local town hall meeting to rounding people up and putting them in camps. Because just like the flock cameras, it's a steady escalation. You have an escalation of force, dude. It's just like the escalation trap in a war. And it's the same thing that I'm seeing, right? I'm seeing it with the police forces. I'm seeing it with the federal police, law enforcement agencies with ICE. Honestly, I'm seeing it with local law enforcement agencies. If you're a cop out there and you're going to hook somebody because they're speaking out about a data center at your local town hall meeting, and you're doing it because, quote, it's your job, it's just your job, then you're one of those ordinary men. You're one of those people that will turn into one of those men that will continue to escalate. That's what you are. That's exactly what the fuck you are.
Well, and I think too, like with like I said, it's all tied in together. Like a flock camera is not just looking at you to see if you ran a red light or see if you have a license plate of a stolen car. When you stop at a stoplight, that flock camera has access to your cell phone. And because of ICE and the Patriot Act, like that enables them just to go on your cell phone and start searching for data, like it's not ending. And then you have all these data centers. And I don't think they're trying to read the American people. They're trying to shove it down Americans' throats so fast that we don't have a choice but to comply. Like all these data centers that went in, so they went into these towns or these counties, they went into these people and say like, hey, we want to build on your county. They did this whole building plan and then they'd signed a non-disclosure. So then legally they couldn't bring it up to a town board and even ask the town board members if they wanted this data center in their fucking town. So there's like 3 steps to this: initial proposal, a step in the middle, and then the building process. And I forget what the middle step is, but what's happening is people are catching on to with these non-disclosures and they're stopping them in that middle section before they build. And there's been some momentum with towns and people doing it, but how it was shoved down our throats there was no talk about it. Like they're putting these data centers in these places where it's going to take, like if it's an average data center will use more water than a town of 100,000 people.
Hey, Joel,
right?
why don't you talk really quick? Why don't you talk about, spend the next like 10 minutes talking about what you got for that data center stuff with water and everything else? Because Gold Trumpy just basically came out and told the American people to eat shit and die when it comes to data centers. He's like, tough, they're coming, just learn how to deal with it. And so it's like, do you have some information on those data centers? We could probably just do that for like 10 minutes and then jump into the ancient civilization stuff before it gets too crazy into this episode. We got pretty fired up, people.
Yeah.
Talking about this stuff, man. So
what's going on with these data centers, they take a massive amount of water, and there's other countries who are finding different ways to cool them. China has been reportedly talking about, they might actually have an active one. I'm not sure if the picture I saw was an AI picture, but a data center that's cooled in the ocean. They're talking about, because there's massive amounts of electricity being drawn. So one, they're using massive amounts of electricity, which is our grid isn't quite built for. And we're talking about enough electricity to power states in some cases. Like when you're talking to about these smaller states with small populations,
hold on, really
like
quick
Wyoming
too.
and Utah.
Really quick too. China has a lot more nuclear technology than we do. They have a shit ton of nuclear sites and facilities for energy to run those data centers. We don't have anything regarding nuclear energy at all. And so we're pulling straight from the grid. That's another big difference.
And some of China's stuff too is they have a lot of nuclear energy, and they're also working on and there's some people in America too who are working on smaller fusion stuff that's safer to generate these data centers, or using them in a house and taking the power off the grid by using some sort of generator in a house so the data center has more power to pull from. But regardless, these data centers take massive amount of power and massive amount of water, and their argument is it's a closed loop system. So they're recycling 22 million gallons of water over the system. But then, just like when you boil down water and you put water in heat, you start to get buildup, whether it's minerals, chemicals. You look at that side of the pan, you boil water in or steam water in on your wood stove if you live in the mountains. You get that mineral buildup. So that water is going to dilute to the most toxic shit after a certain period of time. So then they have to go and flush that water. As of right now, there is no regulations on what they do with that water if it's a closed loop system. And two, not every system is a closed loop system. They started designing closed loop systems a few years ago, but it's still requiring you to take 22 million gallons of water or more, depending on the size of the data center. And then you have to dispose of that water at some point. And then there's a farmer in Texas where he's had a data center next to his ranch. He hasn't had a live birth cow in 2 years. And this is documented.
Jeez.
And they don't know if it's from the sound that's being put off because it's messing, because these things just hum and buzz. They don't know if it's from the water.
Really
They're not sure why it's happening, but he hasn't had any. Yeah, he's just had miscarriages. Every cow that's given birth has been dead for the past 2 years. And it's pretty, so Trump is talking about tokenizing the water system. In some ways, looking into this, the tokenizing could fix some stuff, especially if it came to, with our water system now, when you have a use it or lose it system. So if you get this water and you're a rancher and you have a rainy year and you don't need to use all your ditch water or your irrigation water, at the end of the year, you're flooding your fields, because if you didn't use that water, which they meter, it's going to say well, you don't need this water next year. But if you have a drought next year, you might need this water. So you're going to use that water. The tokenization system could possibly put the end of that, but it's all it'd be based on water rights that are already grandfathered into these corporations, landowners, stuff like that. And then the municipalities, so we're talking cities and stuff, but it's up to the municipality to write a law that is correct. So when there's a certain threshold of water where the corporation couldn't be taking it from the city, and what tokenization would do would make it immediate. So if you needed water today, you'd pay for that water today. So a lot of the people who are pro this would be good are seeing it from that side, which I don't think is bad, because you'd be paying for the water you actually use. But then the deeper you go into this with the data centers and the massive, so right now, data centers take about 5% of our whole water system in the United States, which is a pretty alarming amount just for any sort of corporate thing outside of agriculture. And after they said, I think it was 2028 to 2030, that it's going to be taking up to 15 to 20% of our water system. And that's a massive, massive draw in a system that's already taxed. So we're talking the Ogallala Aquifer in Oklahoma. It dropped 1.5 feet in a week. They've never seen anything like that. And there's been some ties that it's been from data centers, or these data centers are intentionally being built over aquifers so that they could take this water that's underneath them and use it for cooling. There's another aquifer in Oklahoma. So the Ogallala, I think that was a 30 to 40% drop, but they haven't seen that big of a drop. But in the 70s, people are talking about us running that aquifer down. There's another one west of the Ogallala aquifer that is now 80% dry. And these are aquifers that have been full for years. So not only are we losing our soil, our groundwater, kind of creating conditions that happened in the Dust Bowl because of our farming tactics, we're also taking the aquifer water. You know, like Lake Mead, I don't know if anyone's looked at any of like the West and where our reservoirs are at, you know, like this, if
They're
this
really
isn't
low.
done right, and the fact that water is getting so tight, and we're talking about tokenizing the water system, in which a way could protect the water system, but I'm not seeing boundaries put for these corporations. Like, this is just theoretical. No one said how they're going to do it. So until you see how these corporations are going to have boundaries on the water, I don't have a lot of trust in it. And too, like tokenizing something that's a natural element on this earth that everybody needs. I mean, 70% of our body's made of fucking water, you know, like, and we're coming into water is going to become a scarcity item very quickly when it comes to food,
Yep.
drinking, and stuff like that. And then tokenizing it really scares me because we're already paying for water as civilians. You pay a water bill every year, you know, what is that going to do to
Yeah.
us? And that's what I want to know. And doing research, it's really hard to get it because they're not telling you how they're going to do it yet. They want to put it into a blockchain and sell it just like everything else, have it a digital currency for it. And in some ways, if you read it, could be good. And I'm still trying to figure out how they're going to protect the civilians outside of municipalities. Like, so if you're in rural and you're on well water and you're not taking city water, like from what I could see, there is no protection for you. Your well one's dry because someone built a data center next to you. That's your fucking problem. And there's already a lot of people reporting that their wells have ran dry 2 years after this data center was put a mile away from their house. So this is something that's already occurring.
Dude.
So like if you're in one of these rural areas, there's a good chance that your well's going to run dry if they put a data center.
Dude, hey, well, water, based on my experience in life and what I've read in books, seems to be pretty important for life, right? Isn't it kind of essential? You can
Yeah.
live like 3 days without water, maybe 5 days, kind of depending on what your body composition is. If you're out there, man, I highly recommend a few things. And we'll get into our series here in a second. We're 45 minutes in, Joel.
Yeah.
And
I know.
dude, if you're out there, you listen to me. You need to invest in how to basically where you were going to get water if something goes wrong. Okay. You need to have some kind of water filtration system. You need to know where your springs are, where your natural water sources are. Okay. Like I see a lot. I'm looking at the forest through the trees here a little bit. I feel like we're in a dangerous, dangerous place as a society. I really do. And I think the escalation ladder, just like the war in Iran, is going to keep ramping up, man. I really firmly believe it. If I can, you can already see it happening, you know. And the more that this war goes, and the more expensive everything's going to start getting, and then with these data centers, what it's doing to people's water, the fact that cops are hooking people for free speech now a lot, the fact that we're getting surveilled all over the place, the fact that like people kind of you don't see like the American dream doesn't exist. It's like a shadow. It's like the shadow of a ghost. That's what the American dream is now for for all these generations now. Is it's not even the ghost anymore. It's the shadow of the ghost. I mean, it's moving away rapidly from our society, rapidly. And if you're out there, you need to invest in some water filtration, some dried food. If you have weapon systems, if you don't have weapon systems, what the fuck are you doing? Number one. Number two, if you do, get yourself 1,000 rounds ammunition for every weapon system you own that you case and you don't fucking get into for any reason at all. At all. whether it's a 22 or a 5.56 or a 308 or a shotgun. Get yourself 1,000 rounds for everything you own that you don't touch, that you can count on, rely on. Get a bug out bag, get medical gear. I would start getting medical gear. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things you can't get, but there's a lot of stuff out there that you can get. You can get suturing material that basically is almost like a Band-Aid now. That's really, really handy. You can get, there's a lot of stuff out there. You need medical, you need first you need water, you need medical, you need food, all right? And you need protection and the ability to drop an animal or something. All right. And if you're out there and you listen to us, these are things you need to invest. If you haven't already invested in these things for your family or for yourself, a lot of this stuff isn't going to be lying around if the shit hits the fan. If the shit hits the fan, everything's going to get gathered up quick and there's going to be a lot of problems and it's going to be moving faster than you're ready for if you're not prepared now. And so I'm just telling you, based on what I'm seeing, and I'm not saying 6 months or 5 years or 10 years. I don't fuck when this stuff starts happening. And then on top of that, it's not even just necessarily our own people and our own government you got to worry about. When you start becoming a failed state, you got to start worrying about other nation states as well. That becomes a big concern. And right now, our defensive mechanisms in our military has been almost spent in Ukraine and in Israel and Iran, and it's not being spent defending the homeland. And we are running wildly low on all this stuff. And that's why you got all Hegseth and Trump and all these guys in there talking about how they need $1.5 trillion for this budget and begging for it because we are critically low on everything. They have burned through a vast majority of our surplus when it comes to interceptors and weapon systems. And so, anyway, I would just highly, highly recommend it if you're out there. Start thinking about stuff like that. And so, listen, all right. For those of you out there, the history stuff, I know there's some dudes super into it, like me, like really into the history stuff. I think we're an hour into this sucker right now. So next episode, I promise you, we will get into the history stuff again. I know this is like the second time we've done that where I pushed out because we get too balls deep into the freaking real world out here that's currently happening today. No wonder everybody wants an escape, Joel. People want to talk about ancient history, ancient archaeology, pre-human, the four yugas of humanity, like, you know, pre-diluvial civilizations and technologies and energy systems and all, because it's like today's world sucks. We're dying, dude. I feel like we're dying as a people. You know what I mean? We're so sick. I feel like we're sicker. Like we live longer than we don't know how long people lived, 10,000 plus years ago. But it's like in today's realm, dude, like we live longer because of our technologies and stuff, but we're so sick, dude. We're so depressed. We're so physically and emotionally like sick. We don't have any tribal connections and a lot, at least, in the United States anymore. It doesn't seem like unless you live in a really little town or, you have a big family somewhere or something, but it's like, I feel like we're so disconnected, dude. People are so, they want to like video games, So you can dive into a video game for 8 or 9 hours and completely forget about your bullshit. And it's the same thing with this ancient history stuff, man. It's just like it gives you something else to think about besides all this horrible shit going on in our society and internationally. All the killing, all the sponsoring of killing we do. God. Anyway, Joel, go for it. We wanted to talk about those. Go ahead for it, man. Whatever you want to do.
Well, I think just some of what you're saying, then I'll dive into it, is like, I do think seeing how history repeats itself, whether it's a cosmic disaster, some sort of global cataclysm like a flood or a volcano, and like looking at the timelines with that media turn that we come into all the time and how these ancient cultures paid attention to the stars. It seems like some of them were preparing for something that they knew was going to happen. And then just watching from, how in more recent history, how all these civilizations have failed somewhere and not from a cataclysm, from within the inside, So I think it's this big picture. And I think when people look at big picture stuff, not just what's happening, like it's, you go like, well, how did the Roman civilization fail? And then you get further and further and further back, and then you start to find out that, like all these other civilizations that maybe they didn't fail, but they were wiped off the map in a global flood. And I think it is a distraction that is very relevant to modern stuff, and I think that's why people like to
Yeah.
dive into it. And
You know what, another
but
interesting thing about it
but
too is like
anyways,
the ancient archaeological record,
go ahead.
like when it comes to when you get deep into the foundational like stones or like deep into civilizations that are 8,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, 12,000 years ago, the further back you go, and we're such a war centric, humanity has been war centric for thousands of years. I probably like the last 4,000 years, right? 5,000 years, I would say, since we've kind of reestablished ourselves, started implementing new forms of technology, things like that. And here's the thing too, is we don't know what energy systems people were using 15,000 years. So we went combustion engine, right? That's the way that we kind of went combustion engine and like industrial revolution. And it led us to here, but we don't know what people were using 15,000 years ago for energy. There's a lot of documented like historical documents out there that talk about lighting, like systems of light, different systems of energy. Even in India and some of the Vedic texts and stuff like that talk about things that sound like nuclear weapons that you need permission to use to engage in, that has like a
Right.
massive amount of power. It sounds really similar to it, but you're getting a broken, really fragmented and broken record of what they're talking about. And when you go before that, before like 5,000 years ago, and this is the same thing in the Americas, like on the Mississippi floodplain and the Amazon River, and like, how we always talk about how water is life. It's like the further back you go, dude, the less evidence for warfare there is. That's the interesting thing. Like if you think about like the Hobbesian perspective of war of all
Right.
against all, when man is living in nature, before he signs the contract to give up his absolute freedom for kind of state sponsored liberty, so to speak, that's given to you by the state. And you give up those freedoms for security, right? You give up those freedoms so you have like
Right.
protection for your family and your property. And it's like when he was writing that shit in the 18th century, man, they didn't have knowledge of a lot of this stuff. And it's like now we're finding that the further you go back, especially 5,000 plus years, the less evidence for warfare you have. I mean, there's
Right.
tremendous archaeological evidence for warfare, like in the last 5,000 years, pretty much with every civilization, like a lot of warfare. But then when you get before that to these really ancient societies, where you would think the warfare would even be more robust, right? Because you're getting deeper into the hunter gatherer, what
Right.
supposedly is the hunter gatherer record. And you're like, no, dude, you find way less evidence for warfare, way less. You find thousands and thousands of years of city states like Cataluyuk and some other places where there wasn't warfare at all. And they lasted way longer than the United States has lasted. I mean, we've been around for 275 years or whatever. Some of these city states, thousands and thousands of years, no warfare at all. And it's like we live for warfare now. Just live for it. Just eat it up. Can't have enough of it.
And the crazy thing is why humans have survived all these cataclysms. I mean, there's data out there and like evidence that we were, around 500,000 years ago. And the reason we survived all these things is because we got along, is because we had the ability
Mhm.
to work together as a group. That's why Neanderthals aren't up in the well, whatever. That's why Neanderthals aren't humans now, because they didn't work as well in a group structure, like, or they didn't win the battle between humans and Neanderthals. We're here because we got along. But then this, especially
Mhm.
since, I mean, in my eyes, I say the Abrahamic religions is when like all the war and everything started. You come out of the Abrahamic religions and it's just war, 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 war,
Monotheistic
war, war.
religions.
And I think
Yeah.
yes. And I think before that,
Mhm.
whatever these cultures were basing their deities on and stuff, like it wasn't something was different, you know? And something
Mhm.
changed. And I think a lot of that has to
I
do
also
with
think
like our
I think we had a
civilization.
higher form of spiritual. I think we had a higher form of like a spirit. I think we had a higher form of spiritual intelligence. Do you know what I'm saying? I think there was a connection
Yeah.
with the earth that we've lost a lot. Whether you're talking about even just walking barefoot and grounding yourself to the earth. You know, a lot of people talk about going to these ancient megalithic sites and feeling a spiritual connection, almost like they were built in specific areas for specific
Right.
reasons. And it's almost like an acupuncture of a human. You know, humans have very, very specific acupuncture spots that are supposed to deal with energies and all that kind of stuff. And it's like the earth is very similar to that. And a lot of people, when you're in India and South America and Egypt and like some of these places in Turkey and even in the Americas, there's some kind of spiritual effect that we in our society have poo-pooed a lot, especially in the last 100+ years, right? I remember growing up as a kid,
Yeah.
anything spiritual was so hippie, right? Hippie, super. Like we could believe
Right.
in a zombie Jesus, right? It was more rational to believe in somebody who was dead for 3 days, resurrected, born of a virgin birth, a demigod on earth, died for your sins, heaven and hell, man in the clouds, like very, very structured, monotheistic, single God religions. And that was less woo woo than hugging a tree or being a Native American and spending 5 days fasting on the plains to get a spiritual awakening. You know what I mean? Go out there with no food, no water, something to make a fire, and have a spiritual awakening through fasting and and basically just looking up at the stars. And it's like that. When I was growing up as a kid, like people, especially conservatives, would look at that and basically say that you're a hippie, you know, that you don't care about private property, you don't care about gun rights, you don't care about capitalism, you don't care about democracy, right? And they would equate our governmental structure to Christianity and be like, even though all this stuff, you have to
Right.
believe in a lot of witchcraft and a lot of crazy shit to believe in Christianity. But it's like they would downplay and call you crazy for believing in stuff that had I mean, at the very, very least, was equally symbolically hard to believe. You know what I mean? And I like the fact that as a society we're moving away from that. I really dig it.
Well, and it's kind of funny. I remember, so my parents kind of gave me the option to follow who I wanted to follow. We didn't really talk about religion or anything like that, but my parents would let me go to Bible camp or like Bible study and stuff because that's what the kids in Yampa did. And you had a day where you go and do Bible study and you have snacks in the basement, and they had an air hockey table in the basement. So I always wanted to go play air hockey was the real reason I did any of it. But they had the Velcro board and they were telling the story, like taking Jesus off and putting like Peter up there or something. You know, I don't remember what they were telling, but it was so crazy. And I was watching what there was some cartoon that came out and it was the same fucking thing to me. Like I was like, oh, this is just a story. How the fuck am I supposed to believe that? Like it makes no sense to me. And at a real young age when I realized like this is just a fable. Like, and not to discount, there is a lot of great history in the Bible and stuff, but they're stories, you know? And yeah, it was really interesting. And then like leading into the spiritual side of it, you know, and like the Native Americans with like all these cultures back in the day had to go through droughts and all the stuff that we go through, you know, and maybe they danced or did some goat sacrifice, maybe even it was a human sacrifice, not to say that they did it all the right way, but like we're so out of touch with our environment that like we're no one has to grow their food anymore, so you don't care about the water. You're not the lettuce shows up at your door. You're not growing the lettuce. You know, you have a
Yep.
couple people who do
Uber
gardens and
Eats.
stuff. And that's a sad fact is we're so far removed and so used to being pacified and it's no one's going to care until it's too late. And that's the sad fact, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm not a huge environmentalist. I'm just it's just more about like the food we eat, the water we drink, and yeah, we load it with shit and we wonder why we're fucking have all these
Yeah.
health issues and everything else, you know? And that's where
Yeah.
like,
Our society is
like
weird about this, man. Like it's weird about it. Like pesticides on the food, right? It becomes a political issue. It's like,
right,
no, it's just not healthy to
right,
eat it. Like it's look at the cancer
right.
rates. It's
Yeah,
like, why is this a Republican Democrat issue? You know? And then we're like willing to fight and die for these belief structures that are very, very like, God, just so surface level. They're not deep in any way, shape, or form. When you think about the Bible, like you said about the Bible, and it's like, I think I'm a big fan of the Old Testament because I think it speaks to a lot of ancient, truly ancient mythology. Stuff that's been passed around that
right,
was passed around in stories for thousands of years before it was ever written down. Thousands and thousands and thousands of years. I mean, for example, we'll get into this next week, but like the Aborigine people in Australia, it's documented that the flood myth, which isn't really a myth, the flood story, though, they were able to pass it down. Like they have the longest documented history of basically being able to pass it down without writing it down and have it still mirror what the flood stories are in Mesopotamia, in the Americas, in China, and like the Philippines and places like that where there's like massive ancient flood stories, that had been written down way before they were in Australia. It's like this stuff, it's like a lot of that stuff you think about like the Anunnaki and the Nephilim, the connection there, the giants, things like that. And,
right.
I wasn't going to do this, but I'm actually going to read that passage that we talked about, dude. And this is the story. This is the flood story from
Okay.
Samaria. This is the flood story from ancient Samaria. And you're going to hear when I read this flood story for Christians. I've sent this flood story to some Christians out there, and it bothers them. It bothers them because if there's one thing that's really true when it comes to the Abrahamic religions, is for whatever reason, you think about like biblical archaeology, right? For example, like like finding Sodom, right? Or understanding the fact that the flood story goes through about 300 different civilizations. You know, it's like for whatever reason that
Right,
bothers them because it doesn't belong to them anymore. You know what I mean? And for some reason,
right,
rather than it being verified being true globally, it's a threat. It's like they perceive it as a threat to their religion and their story
right,
because now it belongs to everybody. You don't have to be a Christian to believe in the flood story anymore
right,
because you know that it happened for all societies and all peoples. And it's like that thing about Noah, right? And the ark and being told by God, just like how in this story, it's Enki, the god Enki, who tells another guy who's the Noah flood story survivor. This story predates the Noah story written down, the written account of the Noah story by like 1,000 years. I mean, a long time. And for whatever reason, it's a threat. The threat isn't the fact that everybody knows about it. It seems to be the fact that it belongs to everybody now, and it doesn't just belong to you. And for
right,
some reason, that's a threat to your religion. You know what I mean? Because Noah was one of many, right? One of many, or the name had been changed as it had been going down as languages and
right.
peoples changed. The story started to change, but the basic fundamental principles of the story stayed the same. And so I'm going to read. This is the flood story, which goes way deeper than the Genesis flood story. So you think about the Genesis flood story in the Old Testament, right? It's you have a decent amount written about it. You have like the dove, you have the ark, you have two of every species, right? It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. They sent out a dove to find land. The family that's chosen to survive, the God tells Noah what's going to happen. Also, at the end of the story, Yahweh, right, the Jewish God, basically says that he regrets doing that and he'll never flood the earth again. And it's like, dude, all of this stuff mirrors all of these other stories. from all over the
Right.
world. And this is a perfect example. I'm just going to read it. It's 2.5 pages, but I'm going to read it. And those of you out there, you can kind of think for yourself how this mirrors the Noah flood story a little bit. So it goes like this, quote, when the gods, instead of humans, did the work and bore the loads, dug the canals and cleared the canals, dredged the marshes and plowed the fields, they groaned amongst themselves and grumbled over the masses of excavated soil. The labor was heavy, the misery too much. So they set fire to their tools, they set fire to their spades, and all went, one and all, to the gate of the great god Enlil, the counselor of the gods. Quote, we have to stop the digging, they cried. The load is excessive. It's killing us. The labor is heavy. The misery is too much. And Neil consoled Miami, midwife of the gods. You are the wombless, he said. Create a mortal that they may bear the yoke. Let humans bear the load of the gods instead of the gods. So Mammy, with the help of the wise god Enki, mixed clay with blood, and created 7 males and 7 females. She gave them picks and spades, and led them 2 by 2 down to the earth to relieve the gods of their labor. 600 and 600 years passed, and the earth became too wide and the people too numerous. The land was as noisy as a bellowing bull, and the gods grew restless at the racket. The noise of mankind has become too much, Enlil snapped. I am losing sleep. A divine assembly of the gods was conveyed, and there it was decided by all that make a great flood that would wipe humanity from the face of the earth so that the gods could finally be free of their clamor. Now, down on the earth, there was a pious man named Rattless, whose ear was open to his own god, Enki. He would speak with Enki, and Enki would speak with him. In a dream, Enki came to Rattless and made his voice heard. Dismantle your house and build a boat, the wise god Enki warned. Leave all your possessions and put aboard the seed of all living things. Draw out the boat that you will make on a circular plane. Let her length and breadth be equal. Make upper and lower decks. So Atlathras built a boat and loaded it with the seed of all living things. He put on board his kin and kith as well. He put on board the birds flying from the heavens. He put on board cattle from the open country, wild beasts from the open country, wild animals from the open country. 2 by 2 they entered the boat. Then Atlathras too entered the boat and shut the door. When the first light of dawn appeared, a black cloud rose from the base of the sky. Everything turned into darkness. The tempest arose like a battle force. Anzu, the storm god, the lion-headed eagle, tore at the sky with his talons. Then the flood came. Like a wild ass screaming, the winds howled. The darkness was total. There was no sun. No man could see his fellow. No people could be distinguished from the sky. Even the gods were afraid of the deluge. They withdrew to heaven, where they cowered like dogs crouching at a wall. For 7 days and 7 nights, the torrents, the storm, the flood came. The tempest overwhelmed the land. Bodies clogged the river like dragonflies. When the 7th day arrived, the storm, which had struggled like a woman in labor, blew itself out. The sea became calm and the flood plain flat as a roof. The boat came to a rest atop Mount Nimush. He released a dove. The dove came back, for no perching place was visible to it. He released a swallow. The swallow came back, for no perching place was visible to it. He then released a raven. The raven did not come back. So Athras and the birds of the heavens and the cattle from the open country and the wild beasts from the open country and the wild animals from the steppes came out of the boat. And there he made a sacrifice of thanks to Enki, his god. But when Enlil smelled the sacrifice, he saw the boat. He was furious. Once again, he called the divine assembly to order. We, all of us, agreed together on an oath no form of life should have escaped. How did any man survive the catastrophe? Enki, the wise, spoke. I did it in defiance of you. It was I who made sure life was preserved. The gods were humbled by Enki's words. They wept and were filled with regret. Mammy, the midwife of the gods, cried, how could I have spoken such evil in the gods' assembly? I myself gave birth to them. They are my own people. So Enlil and Enki came to a compromise. Instead of imposing a flood, let a lion come up and diminish the people. Instead of imposing a flood, let a wolf come up and diminish the people. Instead of imposing a flood, let famine lessen the land. Let war and plague savage the population. The divine compromise reached. Enki came down to the boat and took Asriel by the hand. He took his wife by the hand. He touched their foreheads and made a declaration. Henceforth, this man and this woman shall be as we gods are. End quote. And that's the story. And it's way, way deeper because we've discovered more of it, right? Than there is in the Noah flood story. But dude, the parallels are crazy. Crazy,
Yeah.
right? There's at least 3 or 4 direct parallels in that story, and it's 2 pages long, as there is to the Noah flood story. And this story predates the Noah flood story by a hell of a long time.
Well, I mean, yeah, I feel like, yeah, most religions just kind of grow off something, and it makes sense that a story like that actually happened, that they like everyone kind of has their story to it, every culture, and they're all very
Mm-hmm.
similar as
And they're
far as
all
the
very similar.
timeline, like, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's and it's and maybe it's one origin story and it's been spread to every culture, and every culture didn't have a Noah, but they speak of their Noah because that was the origin story of that, like, I don't think,
Mm-hmm.
or it was as simple as some dude saw a plane that was divided by a mountain range flood and ran to his fucking farm and jumped on a boat and threw a couple goats on it, like, is it a
Mm-hmm.
fisherman story? Is it, like, and that's and but the fact of the matter is the flood happened, and
Yep.
it's just, religion trips me out because how much mysticism tied into real events, tied into, like, what it's
Yep.
between all of them, like, that's what it's like based on, it's like
The problems are all the same, dude.
a
It's humans.
allegory.
It's humans. Humans get these
Yeah,
stories,
yeah,
and they need to figure out a way to weaponize an ancient story of probably a realistic event that happened, and then figure out a way to monetize it
right,
in a way. Do you know what I'm saying? And we've been doing that for thousands and thousands of years because humans are still humans,
right.
you know? And it's like when you get humans in power and influence, it's like that's when they start making monetary decisions and then decisions about control. And then it doesn't become a story anymore,
Yeah,
right? Now it's something you fight against. And so it's like if you like your buddy, you talked the other day about your buddy who you brought up the flood story and stuff, but he's very, very anti-Christian.
right,
And so rather than being open-minded about the story and the mythology, he's just like, no, I fucking hate anything
right.
that has to do with Christianity because that's all we do is spill blood for those
Yeah,
motherfuckers and take money from people for those people and blah, 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 blah. And so now, because of that corruption, right, the truth of what really happened becomes a fight now. You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
of the corruption of the
It's
story.
weaponized. Yeah,
And it sucks. Rather than coming together as a people and being like, hey, man, like we're really cool as humans. Our story is way deeper than we've ever been led to believe, than academia has been led us to. I think in 100 years, especially as technology grows, we're going to find out so much about humanity that I think it has the opportunity to, fucking, rather than divide us, I think it has an opportunity. There really is an
that's
opportunity to start bringing people together around our history and our
uh,
that's why this field is so prominent, dude. That's why so many people get into this shit is because we want to know there's something about humans, our consciousness. It's like we need to know where we came from. Where did we come from? What is our history? What is our story? How far back do we really go? There's something in us that drives us to find these answers.
right. Well, and I think if you found out that, hey, there's history within these contexts of these Bibles and different religious readings from different religions that actually happened. In fact, a lot of them tell the same story, same timeline, just from a different perspective. And coming to find out that, like, oh, this was happening on another continent. This was happening here. Like when you said it would bring us all together, and that's what I would hope it to do. Be like, you could have your faith in a god or something greater than you, but, like, why we people want to fight to be right, and it becomes like a tribal thing. There's no respect for another one person's
Yep.
culture, and then you live in a country where like I you have every right to think how you think, but like I don't like somebody who has fucking like skinhead ideology. Like I don't want to be in the same room as that
Uh-huh.
guy. He has a right to think that way, you know. I also don't
Uh-huh.
want to be in a room with somebody who's crazy anti-Tifa, like extremist, the other way around, but you have the right to think that way. But all this stuff like it stems from religious ideologies in the social culture war, from either side, but it typically stems from something that's a ideological based thing, and because people don't know the history, whether it's from a tribal perspective or like a Christianity perspective, like it all gets lost. And if you can't look back on history of these things, like, and you're looking at this argument from a 30-year fucking window, like it's ignorance. There's no like,
Uh-huh.
when you look back into Christianity, they talked about not molesting kids. They didn't talk about homosexuality. Like when you go way back into
Yep.
Christianity, like like there's things that
Come to
like
find out, that's
were
been important
put
for a
into.
while.
Yeah. Yeah,
Apparently, it's not important to our
and
society. It's important on the micro level in our society, but on the macro level of our society, you have people that are church people who are making excuses for a clear and obvious pedophile class that is ruling us, and they're making excuses for him
yeah.
because, again,
Well,
it's part of their team. It's part of that same friction that we're
yeah.
talking about. Rather than coming together as a people and being like, wait a minute, if you have a friend who rapes and murders a girl, it's like, is he your friend anymore? Or do you owe that person loyalty because he was your friend? Do you owe Trump loyalty because you voted for him? He doesn't fucking know you. He's not your homeboy. He doesn't come over to your house for dinner and share stories with your kids and your family around a campfire. It's like, what loyalty do you owe these overlords? Like, why do we find it so
To
difficult to detach ourselves from these demonic, pedophilic, just strangling of humanity pieces of shit leadership class, especially in the West? You know what I mean? We've talked a lot about over the years about how the left and Muslims and all this other stuff and Sharia law and all that stuff. And you're like, listen, dude, you need to open your fucking
right.
eyes. It's all encompassing. It's all encompassing. It is not them versus us.
Me, it's and I don't want to say this in a broad brush, but it's going to come out like that. Is like
Do it.
Chris,
Fuck it.
Christianity is where those places go, where those people go to feel safe. Look at the Tate brothers. They just got arrested by
Uh-huh.
I think it was UK for rape, kidnapping, like
No, the U.S.
3 other
Marshals.
charges,
The
19
U.S.
counts
Marshals
of
hooked
it.
them. Yeah, they're in the States. They're going to get
Yeah, it was in
expedited
the UK.
to England.
Yeah,
I think it was in Miami.
yeah,
They
England.
got
That's where it
hooked.
was. But yeah, they got. But
No,
like
they're going to get
they take those
sent to
people
England.
in. Like
Mhm.
it becomes a safe place for that type of person, and the church has always protected like the priests who got away with molesting kids. And like you could look at any statistic of somebody who molests a kid, almost 90% of the time it's a male authority figure. And I'm not
Yep.
saying that has to be
Very
a
religiously
Christian
orientated too.
conservative to molest, but yeah, it's most of the
Uh-huh.
time it's a male fucking authority figure. And it's like they're projecting their fear because they know they're doing it and say all this talk, and then they're protected because if you say like you're a womanizer or there's allegations of you sleeping with young girls, they just say fuck, you're just trying to slander my name, none of this happened, or it was all consensual. And then they
Uh-huh.
become the victim. And then it's funny watching somebody who talks about victims all the time become the victim, and they do the same thing that a victim does. They shift blame. They find a safe place to hide where a bunch of
Yep.
people who probably have done some sort of wrong in their life will protect them, When I was single and I was dating, it was shocking and alarming to me the amount of women that had sexual assault stories or rape stories. And I know as a young man, I
Oh
probably
yeah.
put myself in some situations where like I shouldn't have, where I maybe not raped anybody, but crossed a threshold, put my hand on a leg when I shouldn't have, stuff like that, you know? And like the accountability as a man saying like, no, there's a time and place and you don't do this, instead of standing up for these fucking people, you know? And that's the thing, is like, why are you going to stand up for these people continuously stand up for them, you know? Like Conor
Yeah.
McGregor, like all these fucking these it's just, it doesn't end, dude. Like, and then they'll say that they're a victim and they just have money and they people are trying to slander their name, but it's consistent, you know? Like there's a lot of good men out there who don't have sexual assault charges, who are famous, who are in the limelight.
Yep. And they're more accepting of people like that, like Trump, and people with clear and obvious backgrounds that they have to just bend themselves some pretzels to defend, than they are of like a Native American civilization that has a flood story that mirrors the Noah flood story. That's more of a threat to them
Yeah. Yeah.
than the leadership pedophile. It's more of a threat to them than that. That's how crazy and deeply ingrained this belief system works in our first world Western societies, is because that is part of their culture, right? The leadership pedophile in the Mormon church,
Right.
the leadership pedophile in the presidency, the leadership pedophile in the Catholic church, the same thing in Islam, everything else, because that is our known culture. These people represent and lead us in our known culture that we survive and exist in today. And that is less of a threat to them than having a culture that they don't know and understand, from a civilization they don't know and understand, from a people of color that they don't know and understand, that just simply has a story that mirrors their origin story. That's more of a threat than the leadership pedophile. That's how weird our society is right now. It's totally true. And then even if you take something like right now Mandani in New York City, right? The mayor, he catches all this shit because he's got democratic socialist views and this, that, and the other thing. And he came out and he's basically like, if Netanyahu comes to New York City, we're arresting him because there's an international arrest warrant for him. And that's the way that we fucking do
Yeah.
things. Now, he doesn't really actually have the power or whatever to do that and all that stuff federally. And Trump came out immediately, right, to make sure Netanyahu was protected. But you're like, rather than looking at the substance of what he's saying and being like, no, I can't agree with him because he's a socialist, period, the end. So therefore, every single thing he says is null and void. And it's like, you can't, as a Christian, as a believer in Jesus Christ, who was he wasn't an eye for an eye guy. Remind me, was Jesus an eye for an eye or turn the other cheek? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Turn the other cheek, right?
Yeah, turn the other cheek.
He isn't bombing fucking kids to death daily, over and over again. Infrastructure, schools, hospitals. We do that stuff. We do. And we justify it. We find a way to justify it through our culture, right? Because it's our known culture. You have this guy Netanyahu. He's not even an American. Mandami is. And you're like, yeah, you don't have to agree with Mandani's political views to agree with his sentiment. Do I agree with his sentiment? I absolutely do.
Right.
I despise Netanyahu. I think he's a terrible human being. I think he's the architect of fucking death in Israel, and it's paid for by our goddamn tax dollars and not theirs. And so it's like, I agree with him 100% on his view when it comes to that. And it's like, I know for a fact there are people that agree with him on his view when it comes to Netanyahu, but they'll never say anything openly about it, or they'll never post on social media about it. Why? Because he's a socialist. Period. The end. Because he's a socialist. Yeah. That's it. And that's all. And the fact that you're a conservative, you're more willing to fucking get in bed with a guy who's murdering people by the tens of thousands by simply being silent. By simply being silent, you're in bed with that man.
Right.
Rather than just agreeing with somebody who's a socialist, saying that this is wrong. That's how fucked up our society is. That's how fucking down the drain we are as a people.
And the funny thing too with Mandami, they asked him about running for president, and he spoke to the Constitution and said, like, no, the Constitution, you have to be American born, and I don't have any interest in running for president, you know? And that could change. I'm not saying it's, but you know, no, I just think it's interesting because a lot of people hate him because just his name, you know, the same reason with
Dude,
Obama. And I'm not giving praise to Obama.
you have all these conservatives that are basically being like, hey, bro, don't worry about Netanyahu. Fix fucking potholes. Stop the crime rate. Fix New York City. That's your job. You're the mayor of New York City. Fix New York City. That's your fucking job. That's what they're saying today because he said that about, you know what they were saying when he was running for office? Remember when he had that debate? He had that debate and got all over because being the mayor of New York City is like almost like being the president, is like more important than being almost the president or the king of about any other country internationally. And so it catches a lot of media attention. And so he's up there, he's doing this debate and shit with, like, I think Giuliani's there, some other, like, Cuomo, not Giuliani, but Cuomo's there, you know, like all these other dick faces are running, and they're all Democrats. They're all running against each other, right? What's the number one fucking issue that got traction nationally? The number one issue was, are you going to go to Israel? Are you going to go to Israel?
Right.
And this became the number one thing that was basically ran with on the internet after this little debate. Because at that time, all the conservatives were saying, and all the pro-Israel, it's not just conservatives, because everybody on the left, right, establishment left is pro-Israel too. So it's the entire establishment class was basically saying, how dare he not say he would go to Israel as the mayor of New York? How dare he say that he would not try to maintain some kind of positive Israeli relations as the mayor of New York? Because at that time, he was saying, why the fuck would I go to Israel? I'm the mayor of New York. I'm going to take care of the crime. I'm going to take care of the the rental problem, the housing problem, the medical issue problems, the crime industry, you know, the infrastructure. That's what he said he was going to fix. And he got fucking slammed for it. And now that he's talking about arresting Netanyahu, what are all these same asshole establishment people say? Stay in your lane. You're just there. You're the mayor of New York City. You're there to fix potholes. You're there to fix the education system. You're there to fix the crime. I mean, dude, we are so fucked up as a people. It's like you can't even, these are the same people. It's just like they moved the goalpost for the Iran war, right? Now it's like we know for a fact we're not getting the nuclear dust. And that was the whole reason we started this thing, was because Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. And now you have these same pundits on all these same outfits being like, that it's the Strait of Hormuz. As if somehow that was in any way, shape, or form even discussed before the bomb started flying. In any way, shape, or form. Nobody even knew about the fucking Strait of Hormuz. Nobody knew where it was. Nobody knew what it did. Nobody knew how to spell it. Nobody knew the name of it. And now all of a sudden the goalposts have moved so far for the conservatives and the people that support this establishment. So even the Democrats, because there's a ton of Democrats too that support this war. A ton. And it's like, that's how far the goal, and we're just like 1984, dude. That's what I was saying before. It's like 1984. In the book, the leadership class lies to the citizenry, and the citizenry is expected to embrace those lies repeatedly throughout the book. Who the enemy is, what you're supposed to believe, your religion, all these different things. And we are seeing that in our society. Because you see it with Mandami, you see it with this Iran war, you see this stuff with Israel. It's like they move the goalposts so much and they lie so much that we have to and we just eat it up. We just swallow it. That's also why I say we're in a dangerous time, because the civilian population is not we the people are really distancing ourselves from the leadership class. I mean, a lot on the right and on the left. The establishment is out to lunch with how the regular people are feeling right now. And it is fucking dangerous.
Well, and here's a problem with the lobbying in politics. Like, so in the last few like spending bills for Israel, Democrats haven't voted that much, but as far as for the spending bills, but there's always enough to get those 7 votes to make something pass. So, but, and it's the same way when it's like a Republican, like if it's a Republican ticket, like where with the Epstein files, where every Republican, but there was, 6 or 7 dissenters, and that's a little different because it was tied into not so much money. But when you have lobbying, like when you have a split Senate, you only need to buy 3 votes, So
Yep.
it's always going to be, and you'll have a conservative Democrat or a left leaning, and that's why the needle never moves. And then stuff gets killed in the Senate, or you get just enough votes to pass the Israel spending, or how we just joined Israel's fucking military. Like that was voted down by majority. Like if you look at the majority of voters, more Democrats voted no for that than yes, but the bot Democrats voted yes, and that was enough votes to pass that bill, where almost the majority of all Republicans, I think they had a few who didn't, but almost all Republicans voted for it, and then both sides will be, and then like in our comment section, you'll see somebody like, Democrats have been voting against sending money to Israel, which they have, but not enough. And the ones who get the most money from AIPAC continue to vote for Israel. So until we get lobbying out of the system, and we could remove
recent.
those fucking no, recent. No,
those votes are really
for
recent.
sure.
The
Not
historic votes
20
with the Democrats
20
and the
years
Republicans
ago.
are totally in lockstep with Israel. Totally in lockstep.
Yeah, especially when it comes to
really
funding.
recent, and it's only because they're listening.
I would
to the
agree.
people.
Yeah, and and that's, hopefully it's something that doesn't become a political like division as well, because it should be, I don't care if Republican or Democrat, are you pro sending our money to other countries and fighting wars and shit, is what it should be, or not pro, are you pro or anti? It shouldn't be a Republican or Democrat thing.
Dude, we lost 4 service members, and when they brought, do you know that when they brought their bodies back and they do the, the transfer, the dignified transfer and all that shit, that they had to postpone it because Trump's agenda? They let the bodies basically sit on the tarmac in a plane and postponed the fucking dignified transfer or whatever it's called, because Trump's agenda and his schedule was more important than that was. More important than that.
And this is what the Trump had the fucking nerve to say when, after, this is it was right before or right after he was being interviewed. And Trump proceeds to defend the war in Iran, claiming all the fallen soldiers had echoed his war aims. He said, all of them very strongly said, we cannot let Iran have nuclear weapons before they died. I'm sure those were the last fucking words coming out of their mouth. I mean, come fucking on, dude.
You know what that reminds me of? Is the last time that we had kind of a mass casualty event, which was, maybe it was when the F-18 pilots went down, or maybe before that. I think maybe it was the first mass casualty event. But remember Hegseth? And he's like, I spoke to all the families, and they said, finish the job. So they said, sir, finish the job. And it's like, dude, these people, they have no fucking shame, dude. They have no shame at all whatsoever. Did you see that recording of Trump talking about, I think it was the leader of China? It was like a king, basically. And there was a recording, and it was like he didn't know he was being recorded. And I forget who he was talking. He was talking to another leader, it may have been the leader of France or just some other big time international leader. It was a hot mic. And he was just basically talking about how the American people need to respect and obey him the same way that they do with the Chinese people. It was something to that effect.
No,
basically
he was talking,
being like, he needs to be
he wasn't talking about
the same way.
It was worse. It was about North Korea. He was talking about Kim.
That's what.
And he was talking about how he was talking about Kim and how the American people need to respect him like Kim. Like this motherfucker, dude. I'm so just listen to Trump talk and his cronies, and if you're still on the Trump bandwagon, like you're fucking, like, if you still love Trump,
dude,
you're either a billionaire or a fucking idiot.
Absolutely legendary. Yeah, the insider trading is just,
Well, let's.
there are so many hypocritical things that are happening right now with people, and for the people that are like us, I consider ourselves enlightened, because it doesn't matter if you're right or left to us. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat to us. It doesn't matter if you're rich or you're poor or have kids or don't have kids or own property or don't own property to us, right? Because our issues are our issues and our beliefs are our beliefs, and it transcends these fucking postmodern divisions that we have in this country. But it's like there's people out there on the right and left where their opinion changes with the wind based on who they voted for, because they cannot,
Right.
just like the Christians we talked about with the Noah flood story that mirrors the Sumerian flood story too closely, that it becomes a threat. It's like these people that dedicated their entire lives to Trump, right? It's like it was too much of an investment. It's too much of an investment to admit. Same thing with the people that with Obama, right? It was too much of an investment in Obama. It was too much of an investment in Trump to be able to bring yourself to say anything negative or not toe that party line, no matter what. Even if they're doing flock cameras, even if the economy's terrible, even if we're killing American citizens without due process, as Barack Obama did during the fucking war in GWAT when he greenlit that. And I remember I was deployed when that happened. And I remember that order coming down the pipe and being like, that seems weird. We can just kill American citizens now. And it's like, dude, these people hitch their wagons to these people. They're fucking kings, man. They're like the Pope. You know what I'm saying? They cannot independently break contact because it's their identity, bro. It's everything they've posted on Facebook for the last 10 years. And so now it's like, they're like, well, man, if I don't agree with myself from 5 years ago, what does that say about me? I just have to keep doing this. I just got to keep doing it. No matter what, I'm going to put my blinders on and I'm just going to keep on with the keeping on. Even if the outcomes are bad, it doesn't matter.
Right.
If the outcomes are bad, it's still better than me admitting that I was wrong.
Well, and you come to like talking about like insider trading and shit. So up until Trump's first term, there's been no president who actively traded while he was president. Trump's first term, he did a little bit of it and more than any other president. Then Biden is the only Democrat, and Biden had 13 total trades while he was in office. And just to comparison, Donald Trump's personal finance disclosure revealed a massive volume of security transactions, logging hundreds of trades in his first term and over 21,000 trades during his single recent search of activity and thousands more across various accounts,
I mean, generational wealth and 365 days of and being involved in that family has transformed your financial futures for your family for generations because of what this motherfucker is doing on the backs of the American people.
Well, and so what Ty's talking about, so the U.S. and Saudi Arabia have reached a landmark agreement to provide the kingdom with civilian nuclear program and potentially open a door to uranium enrichment on its territory. The Trump administration announced on Wednesday. This is a 30-year, multi-billion-dollar deal that gives American companies, which is great, but we should be fixing our own fucking infrastructure. American companies a central role in developing Saudi Arabia's nuclear infrastructure.
Owned by who? Run by who?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, you just say American companies. We have a lot of American companies doing shit internationally that doesn't do fucking a goddamn thing for the American people.
Well, and it would be interesting, just like, so Trump bought $5 million worth of Axon. Axon is a taser company. Like 3 weeks after he bought $5 million worth of Axon, the government signed a $2,200 million deal with Axon to build tasers for ICE, and coming back to the Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
so
taser
Trump's had
cameras
ties
that they don't even use. Taser cameras that they don't even turn on and they don't use.
Bullshit. Yeah. It's bullshit. So Trump's had deals with Saudi Arabia we're talking back to 1991. To alleviate corporate debt, Trump sold a mega yacht, the Trump Princess, which eventually was transferred to Saudi Prince Alawddin Dentala. In 1995, the Plaza Hotel Trump offloaded as a majority stake in the New York Plaza Hotel to Prince Awada, the same prince, and Singapore billionaires in a $325 billion deal. And these are all things that Trump was like failing on, and he had to have somebody bail him out because he couldn't make it work. And so
Hey,
in
who got Trump his
2001,
brand
condo
new?
sales,
Which state got Trump his brand new Air Force One plane again? Which state just gifted him that?
was it Qatar?
Saudi Arabia.
Well, okay. I could remember
Pretty
which one, but
positive
it's the
it was Saudi
same.
Arabia.
But even if it wasn't, it's the same thing in Qatar.
It's the same network.
They have these deals. Yeah, it's the
Live
same
Golf.
network.
Live
And
Golf.
just talking.
Same thing with Live Golf.
Live Golf, yeah. And here's some more recent stuff. So you have DAR Global Projects. Trump's organization partnered with Saudi real estate developer Dar Al Kankar through international subsidiaries DAR Global to license the Trump name for a luxury golf resort, hotel, and residential complex. Trump's Tower Judea. The family corporate company expanded its Middle Eastern footprint by moving forward with a high-profile luxury tower in Judea. The Dryad Gate expansion. In April 2026, business filings revealed a creation of a new Delaware entities, including DT Drahaya Golf Company LLC, indicating branding and management integration, and Crown Prince backed Dyer Company and project of a mega project near Riyadh. I'm pronouncing that town wrong. And that's one of Trump's family LLCs. Direct revenue. Trump earned approximately $9 million directly from inside Saudi Arabia in 2025. Saudi Arabia backed partners
really
yielded
quick,
an additional $17
do
million.
the context about why we're talking about this. Why we're talking about the fact that we're talking about Saudi Arabia.
With the nuclear deal in Saudi Arabia and having like
this just came down the pipe.
Just going to enrich. Yeah. Trump has so much money there, like enriching that environment for him. It's the same reason he wanted to take over Gaza and build Gaza as like the Trump Plaza. Like he put that post up of the AI post when he first. It's because they have a bunch of business dealings there, and and just to enrich their fucking family, I mean, we're talking in 1 year, $9 million of direct revenue. And that's just direct revenue that you could see on paper. Most of this cash is liquid and moving. So you're not seeing what's actually happening with it. That's just direct revenue. And another $17 million across the Middle East. And that's just in a year. And that's just the revenue that's reported. That's that's how these people protect their money and not show that they keep it liquid. They keep it moving so it can't be taxed, and the Kushner's private equity,
tax them on it anyway.
They have
not that we would tax them on it anyway.
And
it's me and you that get taxed. We pay for everything. They don't pay for shit.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Donald Trump, they don't fucking get taxed at all. And you still have people that go out there and be like, why should they be taxed?
And just like something we talked about a long time ago.
People. We need them to create jobs so we can tax their employees. Duh. We need to make sure they keep their billions of dollars so they can create jobs so we have more middle-class people to tax.
Well, and the annoying thing to me is you have some fucking... This person doesn't annoy me, but how they think annoys me is you have some super conservative blue collar guy who works his fucking ass off, hates paying taxes. He sees his paycheck, if he's working if he's 1099, he has to do his taxes. He has to figure out how he can make money. If you want to buy anything, you got to claim revenue. So you can't always take the tax hit, there's ebb and flow to that. Or you're working for a company and you see your taxes get taken and they'll bitch about it. Oh, I lost, fucking 20% in my taxes, which that does suck. And I love that dude. But you realize some rich asshole who has billions of dollars, 4 fucking houses, probably paid less tax than you did that year. Like, that's the fucked up problem. And that's the thing where, like, I don't like the idea of giving my paycheck to the fucking government, but I definitely don't like the idea of me, one, paying a high percentage and at some points an actual higher cash amount in taxes than somebody who owns 4 fucking houses than me. You know, like,
Well, yeah, you know
what the
people, but
fuck?
usually this is
Like,
usually
get that out of your.
the conservative, yeah, the conservative argument I remember hearing as a kid and that I used to defend. I used to defend this shit. Would basically be like, you know, first of all, they create jobs, right? And second of all, and which I just talked about, which I think is total bullshit because you're basically saying that they need to create more jobs so there's more people that we can tax and take money away from in the middle class because they're the people that you created the job for are the people that are going to give you getting all their shit taxed. And what was the second point? The second point was, oh yeah, if you confiscate all of their wealth, you'll run the government for like 3 months. That's usually another thing here because they go right to the communist line, right? Where they're going to confiscate the wealth. So if you take Elon Musk's wealth, what $1 trillion, whatever it is, and it would run the American government, let's just say for fucking 4 months or I don't know, however long it would run the American government for. I don't know what the number is. And they're like, see, that doesn't even work. Even if you took all of their money, it wouldn't even be enough to run the American system for even half of a year. And you're like, what point? We're talking about taxes. I am taxed yearly. I don't have my money confiscated by the American government either to run the American government, but I have every single purchase I make, every single paycheck I get. I have a higher percentage missing from that fucking dollar than I am comfortable with. Repeatedly over and over again for as long as I exist in this fucking realm on this planet. And you're going to tell him, I'm not talking about confiscating his wealth. I'm talking about him paying like I fucking pay into this shit. Okay. I take food out of my kids' mouths. My kids could have more property to run on, right? Behind us in our backyard if we didn't get fucking taxed so much. They would have more opportunities. They would be able to go to more sports camps, things like that, if we didn't have those taxes removed from our paychecks. Not talking about giving up everything for a one-time investment of their totality of what they're worth.
Right.
We're talking about the longevity and the principle of the matter, right? That's what we're talking about. I don't give a fuck if Elon Musk's $1 trillion runs the government for 3 months or doesn't run the government for 3 months. That's not the goddamn fucking point. The point is he's an American like me. Right. He's a taxpayer like me. He's not a fucking king. And he's not a fucking god, okay? He's a human being who's living in the capitalist system under what supposedly is a democratic republic, just like I am as a citizen of this country. Do you know what I'm saying? And I've started a business. I've had my own, contractor business where I was self-employed doing all that stuff. And it's like, hey, I still got taxed. I still got taxed when I was running my own shit. You know what I'm saying? Still got taxed. It's like, that's the point. The point is we have we have an oligarch class in our society that's untouchable. And they're so untouchable that not only do they keep all their money, but they can fuck our children and steal our children. Yeah. And you have at least half of our society or 40% of our society that will turn a blind eye to it if it is their god or their oligarch. That's the point.
Yeah. And they got us arguing over color of skin and if you have a accent when you talk, like it's all bullshit. And that's like I don't know. It just sucks. Like I was talking to one of my girlfriend's family out in the Midwest and he does cattle and he does about 300 head. And he goes, you get above 300 head, you kind of have to sell out. I could do 300 head and still support my family, still do stuff. But when you get above 300 head, you either have to grow and like take this step to where you're going to be regulated more, but because you're growing, you can't take that regulation over. So the only other option is to have a corporate buy you. So like this ebb and flow of like, as soon as someone incorporates, people think like it's like, oh, it's a big corporate thing. If you want to grow as a company and you're an LLC, you need to incorporate. But as soon as you incorporate, you're put under a whole different threat of taxes, and you're getting taxed at a much higher rate. And just because you incorporate as like a Democrat or somebody who leans very left, just because we incorporate, like you shouldn't be taxed the same as a corporation like Walmart or Amazon or any of these superpower corporations. And that's where I think a lot of Democrat lawmakers will, like, that line on that corporate thing needs to be adjusted for like a startup company that's trying to grow, because you could work your way to a LLC and get to the point where you need to go corporate, but you can't take that financial burden. And it's almost set up so a big company could just come in and buy you out. Like the dream of most inventors now is to get bought out by another company, because it is so hard to start your own Apple or start your own thing. So
Yeah,
it's,
you just want to
you
sell
get
it,
to a point, you get to the point
make
where
it big enough to sell it.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens in oil all the time. There's all these smaller oil operations that typically support a more local environment or a smaller group that's not so in and out. And they get to a point where they're stepping up, and then they get over regulated. They can't take the regulations, or they fuck something up, they get fined. And then a big company just comes in, buys their property, fires all the guys, and then takes it over, you know? And it's where capitalism is to the point where big capitalism is just killing the free market. There is no free market anymore. It's a illusion,
You know what's funny
because the
too
big capitalism
is
just
the
comes in
younger.
and eats it up.
Yeah, and that's, everybody's like, you get all of these, you're getting a lot of people on the right, like Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, which, I mean, they're doing good things when it comes to like Epstein, and they're even like their views have changed a lot just even in the last year, which I appreciate. But it's like they're really anti Mandani, right? Because they see him as a huge threat
All right.
to what they believe to be a pure capitalistic system here in the United States, which it's not. And they don't understand why you're
Right.
getting, because they don't understand why you're getting all of these, especially the younger generation. Like here in Colorado, in New York, they kicked out all the establishment Democrats in that election, and they put in younger people that are kind of like democratic socialists in a way. And we did that even here in Colorado in the last election we had. We kicked out the incumbent Democrat, right? And replaced a few of them with younger democratic socialists here in Colorado. And the thing about it is you have people, I know for a fact, there's people who voted for Trump that are younger than me that voted for the Democratic Socialist, because Trump has been such a disappointment and such a liar and such an authoritarian himself, right? And has consolidated power so much and is spending all of our money internationally, not only spending our money, but now he's spending our blood as well.
Right.
And so you're getting the younger generation that voted for Trump, that are now voting for Democratic Socialists, because they're like, something has to change. Like, we have to have a monumental shift in this country. And it's like these people that they don't know what to do, man. Like, you don't know how you're going to get ahead. You don't know who to vote for. You don't know who's going to lie to you. You know for sure, if there's anything that they've figured out now, is they know that the establishment class, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, is not going to have their best interests at heart, is not going to be America first, is not going to be America worker first, is not going to be American economy first. They're not. And so they're pushing towards people like Mandami, and they're pushing towards people like these gals that were just elected in Colorado. I can't remember their names. And it's like you get these big time establishment Republicans that are out there, and they're like, oh God, this is the problem with socialism. And you see all these like kind of boomer people on the right on Facebook and Instagram posting stuff like, this is why socialism is bad. This is why communism is bad, and all this stuff and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, hey man, you need to take a step back a little bit and take a look at what's really going on. All right. You need to step outside the box
Right.
for a minute and understand why these people are getting voted into office. They're getting voted into office because our system is failing. Our current system is failing. We are through the roof on inflation. We are through the roof on debt. We are obviously, our leadership class is not putting the needs of Americans first. And so the younger generation that is in a wild amount of debt when it comes to like college and different things like that, that can't buy a house, that doesn't see a retirement, knows they're not going to get Social Security, right? They want something different because what we have now clearly is on a trajectory to fail or lead to, or frankly, lead to outright rebellion in our country. That's what's happening with this
Right.
flock camera movement stuff that we were talking about earlier. And it's leading to that. And so it's like they can't see it, dude. They still think it's about capitalism versus socialism. It's not about capitalism versus socialism. It's not. They're missing the fucking point entirely. It's about opportunity and your future. And you have these younger generations, they're removed from World War II. They don't think about Stalin. They don't think about Mao.
Yeah.
Right? They're not thinking about all of that stuff that happened 100 years ago or 75 years ago or whatever, 50 years ago or whatever it is. It's 2026 and they're thinking about their families today, right now, how they're going to get ahead of this fucking disaster that we're in right now. And that's why these people have gone from voting for Trump to voting for people like Mandami. That is a huge change in like a very, very, very short amount of time. And they are missing the point of it entirely on why it's happening.
Well, and I think too, they're from our generation was more indoctrinated before the internet. So we were indoctrinated by parents and the people we hung out with. And then as we kind of reached that 17, 18-year-old young man thing, the internet was starting to come along, you know, and these people, that younger generation got to see it. And I think they grew up in the school shooting era. They grew up in, they got to see all that shit, you know, like and they probably view the world a little differently, like when it comes to racism and stuff like that, because they've seen it from this perspective of a lens that's the internet, where like we saw that stuff because how we were told. Some dude in Montana, you saw like 3 black people your whole fucking life, probably, you know, like,
dude,
you know, like
in our leadership class, our
you know what I'm
boomer
saying?
leadership
Like,
class, 100%. In our boomer leadership class, what was their war? Vietnam. And what we fight Vietnam for was basically almost like how we did in Afghanistan in the 80s. It was like a Russian proxy war because of the spread. It's trying to stop the spread of communism, right? It was all communism, communism bad, blah, 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 all that stuff. And it's like, sure, I can agree with that. I'm not a big fan of that system for sure.
right.
But it's like you need to have perspective because you're 100% right, Joel. You're 100% right. We were raised by the boomers when they were our age. The boomers were like our age, right? When they raised us. Do you know what I'm saying? They were in their 40s, like their 50s or late 30s, stuff like that, raising a family. And who were their parents? World War II, right? So their parents were the greatest generation that fought in World War II, that fought against, Hitler and Japan, and then Stalin, even though Russia was on our side in World War II, and everybody forgets the importance of Russia when it comes to running World War II because they actually lost the most amount of fighters by far fighting on the Eastern Front against the Germans. And here's a little side note to that, Joel, when it comes to that war, just really quick, because it's interesting. So when the Nazis were fighting the Russians on the Eastern Front and the Battle of Stalingrad and Leningrad and all this stuff, where there was like 1 million plus casualties, it makes the Battle of the Bulge and like D-Day look like nothing compared to what the Eastern Front was like. The German fighters that were fighting against the Russians, when they would get leave, when the Germans would grant them like a month leave or a couple months leave or whatever, you know what they would do? A lot of them is they would reassign them to fight in the Western Front for like 2 months as a break, as a reprieve from fighting on the Eastern Front. That's how bad the Eastern Front was when they were fighting against the Russians on the Eastern Front. Is they didn't go home, dude. A lot of them didn't go home to their families, to their wives, to their kids. They took that leave and they fought on the Western Front for a break, as a break. against fighting on the Eastern Front. That's a little side bit to history there that a lot of people don't understand. But it's like the greatest generation raised the boomers, and then the boomers raised us. And the boomers, when we were kids, are our age now. And you're 100% right, because our kids, the younger generations that are younger than us, are being raised by the internet. They have access to information that they never had access, that we never had access to. We didn't have access to the information. We weren't told, dude. Were you told in the 90s when you were in high school about the Eastern Front of World War II? Was it ever discussed in a civics class or a world history class? Never, dude. You know why they didn't discuss it? Because the Russians were on our side. Because the Russians fought on our side in World War II. And we couldn't talk about that in the 90s because communism, socialism, bad. Communism, socialism, bad. And so because of that, we changed history. They literally transformed history when they taught us, because they didn't want us to know the truth about what had actually happened at the time. You know what I mean? And so this new generation now, like you said,
and that's like
they have access to information that we never had before, and it's changing how they feel about things.
And that's why I think nationalism is so toxic, you know, like so we came out of World War II and there was a big movement. That's when we started changing the Bible. That's when we started putting like homophobic stuff in the Bible. That's when we put the "In God We Trust" in the Pledge of Allegiance. You know, like there was a big push because we were coming out of this war, and I get let's come together as a people, but nationalism it's a scary thing, you know, because that's what it does. It makes a whole group of people think like their way is the only way to live, you know, when there's cultures that have been around
now on the right
who are Christians.
Yeah. And nationalism now on the right is supporting ICE in the fact that they're they're better funded than most countries are now, and they're making an unbelievable, their funding is unbelievable, right? Defending flock cameras, which is a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. Defending the Patriot Act, like that is a clear violation of almost everything in the Bill of Rights. You know, lying against campaign promises, all these international wars and everything else. It's like, that's what nationalism now, because if you supported Trump and you still support Trump, and I don't care if it's right or left, but this is just what it is now. It's like, it is dangerous, just like you said, from the past, because now there's a rebellion. There's a small rebellion that is taking hold in this country. It's very small and it's not bloody yet. It's not, you know, and we can try to keep it from getting bloody, but it is eventually going to get bloody. And you're starting to see it with the pushback that is starting to happen. Think about the pushback in Israel. Just in the last year, Israel has gone from having like a 70% overall rating in the United States of America now to be like 40%, 30%. In literally just like a year and a half. It's taken a dramatic hit. And so now you have the people that embrace those policies, that are Democrats or establishment Democrats or Republicans, and don't think for a second that they wouldn't. This is what all these speech laws are about. Right? This is what the flock cameras are about. This is about what the Patriot Act and all that stuff is about. Why 9/11 was the best thing that ever happened to the American government and the establishment is because it turns us far more authoritarian than we were ever designed to be. Far more authoritarian. And for the people that can't get out of their own way regarding who they support because they just can't bring themselves to change their mind about anything. It's like eventually it's going to get to the point where those people are going to have to make a decision. If it does start to get bloody, it's like, are you going to take the side of the oligarchs and the side of the establishment class, because those are the people that you put in office? Or are you going to take the side of the people that foundationally support the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and the not getting involved in foreign entities thing like George Washington talked about over and over and over again? Are you going to take their side? Because that's how these things happen. We're so far removed away from our revolutionary generation that the establishment class has convinced themselves that they're constitutional with these outcomes. They've convinced themselves of it, and they're not.
Well, and what I personally, I mean, between ICE, and I don't know what this would look like between ICE and the military, but with all the firing of generals and getting Trump and Hegseth guys in the military, I have a feeling anybody who's jumped on board in the military outside of somebody who's just really doing it because it's a family thing in the last year is probably a supporter of what Trump's doing. If you're joining the military today, you're probably a supporter of Hegseth and what Trump's doing. If you joined the ICE agency in the last 2 years, you're probably a supporter of what Trump's doing,
Dude,
and
yeah.
I'm worried about him.
Yeah.
I'm worried about him doing something happening, whether it's a false flag attack or pushback from the people, and then him putting the Insurrection Act, where I think it's called the Insurrection Act, where he could essentially give military the right to act as police,
Law
and
enforcement
that's what I'm worried
capabilities.
about coming into law enforcement capabilities. And I'm worried about that because I think with what's
Well,
going
it's
on
like I
with
said earlier too,
midterms, with how big.
when I was bringing up the book Ordinary Men earlier, right, that I talked about, even local police forces, man, people like local sheriffs and local PD
Right.
guys that are going into open forum, public town hall meetings, arresting people, dragging them out, cuffing them, ruining their lives
Right.
with charges that could take their careers away because they're just saying that they don't want flock cameras or they don't want data centers in their backyard because they don't agree with it. And this is not why we elected our local officials. We did not elect our local officials to institute these policies. And you're even seeing it now with the local police departments where they're going to have to start, a lot of these local cops are going to have to start making decisions independently. It's like, what's more important to you, the job, doing the job, or what's right? What's more important?
Right.
And there's going to be a big rift there too. There's going to be a rift within these law enforcement agencies, just like there's the rift within the military. A lot of guys that join the military and gals do it because they don't have opportunity. And the military is a fantastic way to get your college paid for, get a skill set, get a resume, get a background, get some possibly get some veterans preference point to help you with a career moving forward. And when you get out of the military, and it's a good way to not go in college debt, right? Not to get $75,000 of college debt that will never go away on like a 25% interest rate that you'll pay $1,000 a month for the rest of your life. The military presents that opportunity. And now a lot of these kids they're in a catch-22 because a lot of people, they don't join the military because of who's in office. Like when I joined the military, it didn't have anything to do with Bush being in office or Clinton being in office or anything like that. I remember wanting to join the military when Clinton was in office because it was something I always wanted to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, you're going to get that now today. It's not even going to have anything to do with the Iran war or the fact that Trump's in office. It's an opportunity that's presented that you can better your life in, especially now where it's so economically hard in the United States to get ahead. You can be in the military and raise a family because they're going to pay for your housing. They're going to pay for your medical bills. They're going to pay for your food. They're going to pay for childcare. Like you're going to get stuff paid for that you're never going to get paid for in the civilian. In a lot of ways, the military is almost like a socialist network, if you really think about it, because you have so much stuff paid for by being in that program, and they're going to be in a catch-22. It's going to be like, if we go boots on the ground, they're going to be like, man, this just went from an opportunity where I could better myself and my family and my opportunities moving forward to now it's like, I might die for this shit. And I watched soldiers die for 20 years in the global war on terrorism. So we could replace the Taliban with the Taliban in Afghanistan, and we could replace Saddam Hussein with ISIS in Iraq. Those are the outcomes of those two wars, of thousands and thousands of flag draped coffins coming back to the United States and us going trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in debt, was to replace the Taliban with the Taliban and ISIS and Saddam Hussein with ISIS. That was the outcome. And so it's like these kids see that. And like you said, they have the internet, bro. They know this information. They have it in front of their face. They can read about it. They can see podcasts about it. They can hear us talk about it. And so they're going to be in a position now where they're going to be like, if you get dishonorably discharged from the military, bro, it's the same thing as being a felon. It's like being a felon. You're not going to get a job. You're not going to get student loans. Like it is a huge, on almost every job application there is, if you served in the military, they will ask you if you were dishonorably discharged. And if you were dishonorably discharged, say goodbye to whatever career that is. that you were doing. So if you're over there now, dude, and you're like a MARSOC Marine, or you're an Army Ranger, or you're a Green Beret, or you're in the 82nd Airborne, or even if you're just in the National Guard, and you're going to have to make a decision. You're going to be like, is it worth a dishonorable discharge to not fight in this war that I absolutely don't believe in?
Right.
And kill people that I have never met in my life that, quite frankly, don't. And Iran obviously does not possess, it's not a threat to the United States, clearly, or else we'd be receiving incoming right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There is no threat posed by Iran to the United States of America at all, period, especially within the United States. And so, dude, it's like police officers, local cops have a hard decision ahead of them that they're going to have to start making the way things are going. And it's the same thing with the federal cops, and it's the same thing with the U.S. military. Like, there's a crossroads taking place right now within these agencies.
Well, and you've already had, you know, cops arresting ICE agents and stuff like that, you know, which goes to show that there's some people who disagree with that. You know, it's funny because my car.
Don't think that can't lead to a shooting between a local police department and an ICE agency. That 100%. I mean, dude, that's a wildfire waiting to happen, dude. Right there. That could 100% happen, where you get a standoff between a local sheriff's department and ICE. Like, it's already come to that almost in a couple places.
Yeah, we're at a boiling point. That's for sure.
We're at a boiling point, bro. I think that's a good way to end it. We're 2.5 hours in now. We did good. We did good riffing on this stuff and kind of going off script a little bit, dude. For those of you guys out there, I promise you, we are going to get to the cultures, to the 300 cultures with the flood stories and the memory and how all this stuff works and how mythology eventually transforms into reality. You know what I mean? It's interesting. There's a reality that transforms into mythology, right? And then over a certain amount of time, that mythology transforms back into reality. Isn't that kind of cool? It's kind of cool how that happens.
Right, it is. I agree.
So anyway, bro,
I agree.
I love you, man, but we've got to roll.
All right. Love you, brother. Until next time.